So now we're going to draw an elevation. So I'm just going to refer back to our floor plan sheet and kind of talk about what an elevation is. On this house, north is actually facing up. That is north. So we call this side of the house the north elevation. And so then this side of the house will be called south elevation. So obviously south is down here and west. So this side of the house is called the east elevation, and this side of the house is called west elevation. So if we look at north elevation, you guys will be producing a drawing that looks like this, and you'll be labeling it north elevation. That is as if we were standing on the north side of the house looking that way. So if I can kind of show it to you in this fashion, you'll see that this wall and this line lines up. And that wall and this wall will line up. And the starting of the steps will line up. Okay? And then this little bump out will line up the bay window. Of course, then this wall lines up here, and that wall lines up here. And so this drawing, and you can see window, 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 and then the master bedroom window over there, master bedroom. So as you can see, you could use the floor plan, and just like our method of projection on the orthographic view, you can kind of tape it together and then you can draw these lines down, right? But actually for this demo, I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to go ahead and measure it kind of from scratch. But I just wanted you guys to see how the elevations in the floor plans do kind of reflect one another and kind of communicating to the contractor what the house is supposed to look like. So first things first, again, just like last time. Oh shoot, my little top thing I cut off there. So I don't know how white that is. Hold on one second, I'm going to stop the video. Sorry guys, I'm back. Actually, this is 4 1/4 inches. It was just out of my printing frame. 4 1/4 inches from the top, and then 1 1/4 from the side. So that's the first thing I'm going to do. Which is what I'm trying to do is I'm going to establish my baseline, or what I could call the finished floor level. So technically, if you're in the house, you're standing on top of this line here. If you're outside the house, you're standing on the concrete or the dirt on the outside. So you're going to have to step up a few steps to get to the first level of the floor. So the first thing I'm going to do is kind of measure 1 1/4 away from this edge. Point. And I'm going to go 4 1/4 inches downwards, which is about here. So about here. So I should be fine. I'm going to take that to be my corner of this peg. So that's actually very important. So the first thing I like to establish when I do elevations to kind of establish my reference lines that are going to be very critical in drawing an elevation, which is really what is the level of my first floor and what is the level of my ceiling in the house. So if you look at this elevation, if my first floor is 0, my ceiling is going to be 8 foot tall. So it's a very standard typical house, which the inside dimension is usually about 8 foot tall. So I am going to first draw a really long line. I'm just going to use this longer ruler here. And again, I'm going to use a pen so you guys can see it on my video, but I highly recommend you do this with a pencil so that you can go back and erase some lines. So, actually, I'm going to do a dot. So that represents my finished floor, and then that allows me to be able to measure 8 feet tall to establish my finished ceiling. So 8 feet tall is meet to about. So again, I did a subtle thing, although my kind of the 4 1/4 inch kind of was slightly off my grid line, just to make it more convenient to the drawing. I just drew it to the nearest major grid line that I could find. That way then I can kind of use my grid line as my guide as much as possible. So feel free to do that also on your example. So my 8 feet from my finished floor comes up to this other grid line here, which is perfect. So I'm going to draw another reference line. So that's my 8 foot tall. And then now I'm going to start to establish my wall lines. Again, I am drawing my north elevation here. So you can see this window here to here. So I know that this wall is 17.6 because I've measured it in the past. So I'm going to first draw my vertical line as light as possible. And I'm going to measure 16 foot. Here. And then I know that this wall is 31 foot 9 inches, which should really, and if you measure this, this one also should measure 31 foot 9 inches. Let's just do a real quick sanity check. And it does, 31 foot 9 inches. So I'll be coming down here. 31.9. And then this wall, right here, which is this wall from here to here, it's 6 foot 3. And then we measure this offset to be, I forget, I think 2 feet or something like that. So I'm just going to go 2 feet. Slightly shy of 2 feet. So that's the bump out. So really I have all my walls lined up. I just have to do my roof. The roof is a little bit tricky and it's actually kind of an advanced concept. Let me attempt to kind of explain. So when they make a house, they have a piece of 2x4, and I understand that you may not know what I'm drawing here, but basically I'm drawing a house, length of a house. Let me see. The height is totally out of scale, so please ignore that, guys. So if I'm standing here, this is the bottom of the wall at 0 inches, and this is the top of the wall at 8 feet. That's what we established by drawing these two lines. Bottom is at 0, the top is at 8. And then what they do is the roof member actually comes at an angle, right? So your roof kind of goes like this, and then whatever thickness wood that they use. So they actually rest this piece of wood, which is called the roof rafter. They actually rest that piece of wood on the inside corner of the wall, and then they cut the overhang, and that's how you get your little overhang. So if you look at this diagram here, this line represents this line here, right? On the elevation, this line. But you can see how the roof actually comes below that line, and if that roof overhang is super long, for instance, it even comes much lower than your 8 foot line, right? So really a true elevation is that the roof and the fascia of the roof, that's called the fascia, by the way. Did I spell that right? So the fascia of the roof comes actually lower than your reference line of 8 foot finished ceiling height. And that's why, the roof looks like it's coming below, and and in fact that's how it's built. I guess the best analogy I can put is that if you're wearing a hat, do you wear your hat, do you wear your hat like that, which is quite silly, or does your hat sit on top of your head, kind of like that, right? So in a sense, that's what a house is. So if you were to draw a house, and then that's 8 foot tall here, and then you draw the hat or the roof of the house on top of the 8 foot, you're kind of drawing it like if the hat's sitting on top of somebody's head. But the reality is that the roof actually comes down a little bit lower because it's actually sitting on top of the framing. Okay? So hopefully you kind of understand what I'm trying to explain. It's a really a weird concept, but you really get it if you ever, been to construction site and see a framing. You'll really see what I'm talking about. And in other classes, I'll continue to reinforce this concept. But anyway, for our example, I don't mind you guys just measuring this and then just kind of, drawing it. So let's just measure it for now. So from my reference line, it drops down roughly about 9 inches. So I'm just going to go to my reference line here and drop 9 inches. And drop another 9 inches. And that'll represent my height of my fascia. And then I'm going to make my fascia about a 12-inch thick piece of wood. So from my 9 inches, I'm going to go back up 12 inches or 1 foot. So actually, yeah, 1 foot is good. And again, now we're going to have a whole bunch of lines crossing each other, guys. So just kind of stay mindful of which line represents what type of element. Okay, so now I kind of have my fascia drawn, and these are called overhangs when the roof kind of hangs over the roof, over the exterior wall, and that's because if you have a front door here, if you're standing in front of the front door, you don't want to get rained on. Obviously, the longer the overhang, the more protection. I believe in this house we did a 2-foot overhang. No, it's 1.5 feet. So if this wall is my line here, from here I'm going to go 1.5 feet, the edge of my roof. And then that roof has to go up at a certain angle, right? And this roof here is what we call a 412 pitch. So what that simply means is that for every 12 inches, it goes up 4 inches, and then you can connect the line and you can get the angle, okay? So it's called a 412 pitch. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to measure, actually I'm just going to go like, let me see here, scale so that I can see what I'm doing. So I'm going to take a 1-inch scale, and I'm going to go up 12 inches, which is 1 foot, and then 4 inches from that line. And then that gives me my roof angle, right? And then of course, this roof, the top of it is in the middle of these 2 spans. Again, I recognize that we don't have like proper drafting tools. So I'm just going to roughly measure or kind of draw a vertical line there. And I'm going to measure this distance here. So it's going about, I want to say about 12.5 feet from this corner here, at least on the drawings. So I'm going to just follow that. Take it about 12.5. So that roof stops somewhere here, and at that point it starts to come back down. So I'm going to cheat, and well, it's not cheating because in terms of a roof pitch, if you have a square box and you do that, then this is going to be in the middle. So if this is measuring 12.5, then this is going to measure also 12.5. Okay, so if that measures 12.5, I'm going to take it from that line and I'm going to go back across 12.5. So then that way I don't have to do the 412 pitch again. I just lies. So now I've effectively drawn, this part of the roof. And then that roof at the top here kind of continues. I'm just going to fudge it at this point a little bit. I'm going to just take this line. You guys could for sure measure it. And this line is here. So from here, this roof should stop 1'6" away from this line. So it's 1'6". And I'm only fudging it for sake of speed so that you guys don't watch me draw for an hour. So there's that. And I'm just going to now speed it up a little bit. And this is addition, backside. Addition, so actually this line doesn't exist, but it's okay, you guys can draw it. Anyhow, you guys will locate your window. Please draft it out, but I'm gonna now start to freehand this thing. So the window, the width of the window based on the floor plan, and then the height of the window is depicted on the elevation. So you can see how the contractor would need to see both information. Meaning, for this sink window, the contractor knows how wide it is, but we don't know how high it is. So then on the elevation, he should be able to measure that and give you the height of that window here. And usually the top of the window, which we call the head of the window, that's usually about at 6'8" to match all the doors, because doors are typically 6'8" in height. So again, you have another window here. And if you have the patience and want to really make your elevations look nice, this part of the house is in front of you. This part of the house is behind you. So really, the part of the house that's in front of you, I'm going to change my marker here, should be super dark. That, and then the rear of the house should be much lighter, so your rear of the house roof can go. So then that drawing looks much nicer because now you can see what's in front and what's in the back. So hopefully that gave you guys enough info. Oh wait, we got to finish off the stairs and things like that. So this is what we call a raised floor. Again, we'll get into all of that a little bit more in depth. But this is the floor line inside the house. On the outside, your ground is typically lower. In this case, just go down about 2 foot lower. And then draw yourself a nice fat ground line. There's your your elevation hand drawn. Actually, like if you guys had a little Sharpie marker or something like that, go ahead and do a profile line. The elevation should look really, really sharp. These outside lines, again, I don't want to get into it too deeply now, but if this is your outside wall where the concrete comes up from the ground to the floor, there's like a slight offset in that elevation. And if you have that little offset, it just makes your elevation look so much nicer. This is stucco. You can come in with some, can't see it. Little dots that represent stucco. Those dots are really huge. Actually, this roof edge should also get a dark line. There is your hand-drawn north elevation. Please do your south elevation. And although I didn't give you, where to start your 0, if you will, you should be able to measure this because that's really the height of the house itself. And then kind of translate it here. Give yourself a baseline and then continue. All right. Good luck, guys, and I'll see you guys in the next demonstration.